No matter what, stay in the fire. Delight in the unbearable ecstasy of the heat, constantly changing your forms. Of course, there are periods of pure pain, pure bliss, and occasionally the seeming nothingness of ash. But if you remain in your flames long enough, you will begin to catch glimpses of an extraordinary, alien, utterly familial being, and you will know that everything you thought you were was simply a shell. This episode is sponsored by my dog Juju, who telepathically told me that he's very proud of my commitment to my craft, and that if he had any human money, he would give me a little. He also told me to keep it down because it's 5 a.m. and he's trying to sleep. Thanks, Juju. Today, the hearse has broken down in the right place at the right time, on the corner of My Goodness, the Mystery is a Trip Avenue. While death works on the pink jalopy, we are blessed to have Edward back with us, shooting the breeze about this, that, and the other. I believe Edward may have brought some psychedelic CIA documents in his snakeskin briefcase as well, so it should be an interesting journey. Welcome back, brother. How are you today?
Glad to be here with you, man. It's glad to be back. I got this document I brought with me, man. It's crazy. I've read most of it, but it's so classified. Well, they declassified it now, but it's so deep. I got to take it in doses.
100%, man. No, I know the knowledge is very potent that I think we both consume on a regular basis, and it's important to integrate and to metabolize. Otherwise, it just shorts out in the system. I wanted to take a moment to ground in myself, to arrive here. To anyone listening, as my wife has taught me, it's pretty valuable to, anytime you get a chance, to kind of remind yourself to arrive where you are. So I'm feeling my body here sitting on this pillow. I'm talking to you.
Yeah, man, it's good to be back. It's I really like that line in the poem you just read about staying in your flames. That really resonates with me. I feel like I've been in my flames for a long time, and today it is time for us to let those flames consume us and die.
Exactly. 100%, man. That's what the mission is for me more than ever with how intense the world has become. I look at it as motivation and a deadline to awaken. My dad wrote a poem recently about, a little of this, a little of that. And then he says, everything in moderation, right? And then the next line he says, no, that time is past. Now you must choose. Basically, we either open to love and override our frightened minds, or we listen to our frightened minds and close our hearts even more, because the fires are burning and we can either soften or be, I don't know, man, be in a lot of suffering if we resist. So
Right.
Before we dive in, I wanted to set the tone with a quote from the old Sufi Rumi. He says, I called through your door. The mystics are gathering in the street. Come out. Leave me alone. I'm sick. I don't care if you're dead. Jesus is here and he wants to resurrect somebody. So as we gather here in the street with the hearse broken down, we're hanging with the mystics. I'm calling in the immortals to assist us in shedding light on what is meant to be revealed here and now. That's my intention. Right 20, 30 minutes ago, I was having a coffee with a fascinating duo, Brian and Vitali, and we were talking about mystical ideas, metaphysical things. And Vitali, after hearing me pontificate about XYZ, he said something that really struck me for our conversation and in general. He said that he believes that perhaps we die the moment we speak our first word. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, basically, when we're born, we're in that state of just like wonder or from the other place or just, in the soup of the cosmos, if you will. The moment we say a word or people begin to say words to us, we're defining things and then we imprison them. So a bird is like, what is a bird to someone who's never heard the word bird? It's different than when you've heard bird and now your brain has categorized it and in doing so imprisoned it to some extent. And that goes, for religion, that goes for God. God's been put in a bubble, he said. And I thought, wow, that's true. Or all these different ways that we imprison ourselves with language. And so as we begin to use language right now, you and I, to talk, how can we use these words to keep things open and flexible? That's not a question for you or me or whatever. It's just like, that's the intention that I'm trying to do.
So how can we use these words to keep things open and flexible?
And not imprisoned and dead in that way.
To your point, I believe it's important doesn't even feel like the right way to say it. Like vital to be aware and choose your words consciously. And I don't feel like that's something that, at least I personally was taught growing up, is something I had to evolve to understand by trial and error. And by diving into, the literature I choose to read, which is very, I choose old stuff, old books, and they're big on choosing your words wisely and being conscious of that. My whole life, I've thrown my words around, and other people may or may not, but I resonate with that very deeply because it's, they say you've always heard the tongue is a sword, I think that's a metaphor for a literal concept.
Absolutely. So the flames will consume the words as we speak them. They change and...
Hold on, wait a minute. Did you hear that?
What was it?
I think that the hearse started to crank.
Oh, shit. The rumble.
I heard it turn over. Hold on.
That's death.
That's death. He's getting to it. He's coming.
He's
you know what I mean? It's almost time.
It's almost time.
Yeah, he's fixing things. But like you said in the last episode, man, he's a misunderstood character,
Big time. I mean, exactly. Like I think I mentioned in one of our episodes, an old quote says, if people knew the truth, they would cry at birth and laugh at death. And listening to the telepathy tapes recently was a really huge revelation for me because through the scientific lens, through Western minds, now it's the biggest podcast in the world. These are concepts that are being verified through the Western lens that I have been speaking my whole life through my poetry, that the mystics have been talking about. And in that, they talk about how death is not only is it not the end, where we go and where we come from is realer than here. So in a weird way, this is more death in the way that it's understood than the other place. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I think death is very misunderstood, and he's kind of like a snuggly puppy in a lot of ways, but we just, we don't understand, and people are afraid of him.
Well, the flip side of the idea is, in my opinion, like, before we were born, I think we've talked about this before, but where were we at? You know what I mean? I'm afraid to go to this empty place, but that's where I came from, So when I wrap my mind around that idea, that this is where I came from and I'm afraid to go back. All of a sudden,
and who knows if it's empty?
Right. Next thing you know, we're riding around with this. You know what I mean? Trying to figure out different flavors, like the seasons, like we discussed before, throughout your life. I believe and agree with you and the idea that we die multiple times. You know what I mean? Or maybe we die in one reality and wake up as though it never happened.
100%. I mean, I think that we're here on missions. I think we come down to forget in order to remember as context. If we're immortal beings, which I feel we are, then it's part of the game to have divine amnesia and to reawaken back and forth. So all sorts of concepts. And on that, I would say one idea that I wanted to bring into the hearse today, even though we're still on the side of the street with the mystics. I know Death is doing his thing. We're going to be cruising soon. The concept of the deeper self. It goes by many names. Atman, the soul, the big I, etc. So the deeper self is connected to the universe. And if you're receptive to it, you will be in alignment with it, and it will guide you, and you will find yourself in the right place, saying the right thing. The great person allows the universal energy to operate through them. So what is that like for you? You spoke to it a little bit about being more conscious with your words, but I think the rigid ego, the part that develops, the fearful part, the part that thinks it's us,
I mean, I think, man,
adapted
it's
to
like
social. Yeah.
like we talked about before. It's almost like thinking about when you play with a puppy. If the puppy's sitting down, but you start playing with it, throwing stuff to it, all of a sudden it reacts, it brings stuff back, it fetches, it wants to play, right? I feel like whatever this thing is greater than us. You can call it anything you want to, but I feel like it's similar idea to that. You know what I mean? Except for I'm sure I'm the puppy. You know what I'm saying? That's the only difference. And I think that energy and I don't know. It's like it's once you become at least believe that you may be aware of it. It's like it reacts to you in appreciation. You know, it's really interesting how that works. You know, we've all had someone call that you just thought of, and those type of things. You know, so
Absolutely.
At what point do you pay more attention, accept that, and be thankful for those messages or whatever that may be? You know,
the synchronicities, unlearning, untraining, all the ways we've been taught to only listen or believe what we see.
Hold on, wait, Death, what'd you say? I think he's ready to go.
Yeah, actually, he just told me he's located the problem with the hearse, that we're actually just out of gas. The whole time we thought something was broken, it was just an empty tank. And I don't know if you hear that, but it just started to rain. I'm going to run in the bodega and get a Lucy before we go, though. Do you want anything? Reminder to die. That's the name of this episode. To me, it's like note to self, die at 3:00 on Tuesday, December 18th, whatever the fuck. In the Egyptian traditions, I'm rereading Awakening Osiris, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, because I'll be interviewing Normandy Ellis, who wrote that here soon. And a lot of that voice that feels like one voice, although it came through different people thousands of years ago, every night you die, every day you're reborn, this cycle, this embrace, this reconnection to nature, if you will. We're so out of alignment because we petrify and fossilize ourselves in an attempt to perpetuate an identity, because that's what people want to see. Who's the Edward that's always the Edward that got successful as the Edward? How do I build in flexibility to keep dying? So that's where this concept for the episode came. And I wanted to ask us, how do you cut the invisible umbilical cords every day that strangle us from our inherent joy or aliveness now, so as to never atrophy and become stagnant? It requires, I'll just say one more part, sacrificing the little self or ego in the name of being of service, which in turn gives the greatest joy. And we can discover what's already within, learn to trust that, in turn receive our inheritance and soul center, which can be blocked by the rigid little self ego that thinks it's us. So cutting those invisible.
I would say that to my version of that is to be very on purpose about slowing down and doing as much of nothing as possible to remember the moment that I'm currently present in, you know? Because I tend to sometimes think about the past or contemplate the future while I'm in this moment. And this moment is like a moment that I used, you know, focusing on other parts of the timeline when I could enjoy this moment. And that to me is something that's been major lately, you know, is trying to figure out how to do just that.
How do you do it?
Go out to the country, put a phone in a box and lock it. You know what I mean? Read some stuff, do a whole lot of stuff that just I don't have to do for any particular reason. I just do it because I enjoy it and it calms my mind, you know?
Do you feel like you have to play defense against things that are tugging at you to not do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's just a thing that we build up ourselves psychologically or a force that works against us. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it's an interesting topic to think about, right? Like I know exactly what you mean though. There's sometimes it's like there's things in the way and you have to defeat those things. You know what I mean? And the better you get at it, the more things they throw at you because you're more prepared.
Yeah, for me, it can be internal or external, or both at the same time. I noticed that sometimes success can actually become something that's blocking you from what you're describing. Again, because now people want you to repeat what you did, or you've been trapped in a certain way, but you might not feel like that. But then the demands of your old you are tugging, or I find that there's this self-sabotage internally that maybe I'm sick, maybe I work too much, my defenses are down, I'm listening to someone I love on the phone who's in a bad mood. Suddenly, it's like a virus has spread and I'm starting to feel out of tune with myself.
Right.
Somehow. I've abandoned myself. I've fallen back into the illusion, which I think is part of it. So I don't think it's necessarily possible. Maybe it is. I mean, I'll leave that door open to have real enlightenment where you're just able to stay in that flow forever. But it's definitely tricky. I am grateful that I have a touch point, if you will. Now when I'm out of my pocket, I'm very aware that I've fallen out of my pocket, which means I'm aware of being in my pocket, which is way different than when I used to just be kind of flailing around all the time.
I like to refer to that as stepping outside of my hypnosis. You know what I mean? The hypnosis is what I'm just kind of naturally guided to do by all the stimulation around me, right? And then stepping outside of that is kind of my explanation for what you're describing.
So the hypnosis is kind of not a good state. You've been kind of lulled to sleep by noise.
I think it just depends on the hypnosis. You know what I'm saying? It's like saying like, is a potion good or bad? I'm just using potion. You know what I mean? Is something good or bad? Well, it depends on if it's poison or if it's nutrients. You know what I'm saying? You can use it either way.
In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, this morning I read a line about the piece is called Becoming the Snake. And the last line says something like, what is honey in my mouth is poison in your hands. And that's like from the snake talking, so these different. And I read about Sebek or Sebek, however you say it, but Becoming the Crocodile. I got to take a picture and send you that. Have you ever read Becoming the Crocodile?
You said that to me. I don't know if you said me. You're talking about the part out of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, right?
I sent that from the old one. I just rebought it. That's you remember that shit? Out at the end, it says like, when you were staring into the dripping jaws, you were staring into the jaws of creation. And that the destroyer of lives with this foul smelling corpse teeth and all this is like so horrible to your mind. But in fact, it is the thing that gives you life, and that Sebek or however you say it is weeping for you, but it's also freeing you, which is the reminder to die. Just the way the wheat gets threshed and turned into bread. Do you cry for the wheat? Do you cry for the seed? All this kind of shit, man. I was powerful.
That's dope. Yeah, that's creation. That one really blew my mind, man. That was dope.
Yeah. So, truth and beauty. All these themes throughout my life, all these patterns I notice in myself, through my goosebumps, through the good vibration sensory system, what I gravitate toward, what I keep gravitating toward, what I keep singing about. I've written thousands of songs. I keep hearing these themes. So apparently, according to the telepathy tapes, what I've always felt is confirmed by these nonverbal autistic children who communicate with deities and each other remotely and etc. The only things that matter on earth are creativity and love. And everything that is created lasts for eternity, whether it's a book, an album, etc. So the compasses, I'm interested in compasses, how I navigate, because there's your partner, your wife, your husband, whoever in the world, people close to you, they have their compasses. You have your mission, though. We all have our mission beyond, I'm talking about the soul mission. We might not even fully understand it yet. I hope we don't, because I feel it, it's greater than we can fathom. So continuing to reorient to the compass, I like the idea that truth, like universal soul truth, and beauty are wonderful compasses. So if lying is impossible in the sense that we're all telepathic, we just aren't acknowledging it with our heads, but our souls are always communicating. The vibrations are always there. The only way a lie will work, societally or individually, is if we're kind of participating in the game of we can lie to each other. But vibrationally, we already know it's not real. We just don't listen because we're out of tune. So if that's the case, the only thing to do is to sacrifice yourself into pure authenticity, in my opinion. Pure authenticity. So what is that like, to embody universal laws no matter what, even if it means you lose your job, even if it means your best friends hate you, even if it means, and again, it doesn't have to, well, not again, it doesn't need to be so extreme necessarily, like you have to run out and start screaming all your inner ideas to every single person, but not letting the barnacles accumulate on your ship of truth as you navigate because you're trying to play some fucking games. How do we embody that?
I would say by example. You know what I mean? By being an example as opposed to explaining the process, right?
It makes me think of being comfortable with discomfort as well, though, because like in order to hold the mirror of truth, it can make other people uncomfortable. And if you're a people pleaser like I am, seeing someone else uncomfortable starts to make me uncomfortable. And then I don't want them to feel uncomfortable, which might mean I might dim my truth. But also the time to know when I don't need to spew my truth on someone who might not be ready, which we've talked about like in the alchemical ideas. So
that's my only thing is like, just living those examples and spreading good energy and being good to people and smiling and making eye contact and making an effort, like to say something to somebody who you would usually just stare at, like passing on an elevator, but connect with them if you can. And you know what I mean? And
100%.
Wish them a good day on purpose. You don't have to. And you're not going to get nothing out of it.
Send it to them too, even. Yeah, either way.
You could do that too, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just I don't know, man. I see people do it and I think it's powerful.
I've noticed something. I was talking to my wife this morning as we walked our dog, Juju, who sponsored the episode. Shout out to Juju.
Shout out Juju.
So the other day, I caught myself in this interesting kind of moment right before I acted on something. And what it was I was about to tell my wife about one of my friends who had something fall through with their work. And I noticed, why am I going to say this to her? Oh, pardon me. I'm going to say it because in a weird way, it might make me feel like I'm doing better because, see, even their way didn't work. Basically, I knew that I was trying to play this shady little minor game, and it was so cool. I didn't say it to her. And I felt like it was a moment of a new level of awareness, talking about coming back to like doing nothing. I love that, what you said, or stilling yourself. So each thing you do say is precise. And you're saying, why am I saying this? Who is saying this? Is it my fear part that's saying this? Is it my...
And also learning to have the ability to think before you speak and make sure that you want to say the things before they're actually said and set in stone.
What's on the tape deck? Only cassettes in here. Let's see. An anonymous tape. There's no artist on this one, but let's turn it up.
Oh shit, is that Egyptian Sufi flute music?
With some fucking blues hand percussion on the upside down painter buckets.
Damn, the hearse has got the bang in the back. Is there still room for you to be back there?
Yeah. I might actually come up in the back seat today, get out of the trunk. I've been feeling a little claustrophobic anyway, so I'm gonna look out the window maybe, or I'll just take a nap and dream talk to you. Either way, I think for some reason the rain is suddenly syncopated to the music that's playing as well. The tempo of the rain has aligned to my index finger pressing play on the old cassette. That's trippy, man. We must be in the right place.
At the right time.
My dad always would say, may you be in the right place at the right time, and may you know you're in the right place at the right time. That difference between knowing it, being aware of it. In a sense, we are all rag dolls for spirit. If you will, you could even say the metaphor of death driving us right now. We are at the whim of where death is driving. Obviously, we could say, yo, can we go take a left? But I don't think we're doing that. We're letting death drive. I'm not here to micromanage him. So if we are all rag dolls for spirit to some extent, I find that even my dreams are connected to others, my moods, etc. Seeing as this universe is connected and often a lot of shit hits the fan, how best to deal with this, keeping our peace within, but also leaving room for bending with winds like the willow as opposed to a rigid tree that snaps in a gale. So that peace that we can access, inevitably, like I said, I could be on the phone with someone I love, they're in a funky mood, it tugs at me. I might overwork one day and my dreams are crazy and I might remote view someone suddenly, for real though. I've had some what feel like remote viewing dreams recently. So in that way, I feel...
Where do you go in the remote viewing? Where are you? Or how does that work? You know what I mean?
I had one recently about an artist who... it was like I was in their POV, so it was on Earth, and they were working on an album and writing in a notebook lyrics, and there was some technology that allowed fans to have a tablet that was changing as they added lyrics to it. Does that make sense? Kind of a crazy idea. Imagine you followed your favorite artist and they're working on an album and you're seeing new lyrics appearing in their book as they're writing it.
That's dope.
That's what happened in my dream, but it felt like I was remote viewing somebody. I don't know.
Damn.
But my question is, how do you, because you deal with a lot of people, how do you basically maintain your essence and your you-ness and connection to that when inevitably there's shit tugging at you, people's emotions in your circle, let alone the planetary alignments, let alone huge things in the world. My dad just lost his home in the fire, so I'm in California. The fires
I didn't know that. I'm so sorry to hear that.
It's all good. I appreciate it.
Is everybody okay? Or
everyone's safe. Everyone's good. But my point is, like, the fire energy in California has been intense, and I felt it in my body. You know what I mean? Like beyond the news, I don't watch the news. I felt this intensity. So how do we leave room for ourselves to experience these things that happen while still staying in tune with ourselves?
That's a really good question. I mean, my personal method is just, I thrive in chaos for some reason. For some reason, that's where I live and that's where I stay. You know what I mean? Years and years and years and years ago, a psychic told me that I was running from a bear spiritually. She was like, you keep running from this bear. And I still feel like that to this day. You know what I mean? That I'm running from the bear. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I look forward to you meeting the bear.
I think I am the bear.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I look forward to you meeting your bear hugging.
No, I just said that, but all bullshit aside, it's like that's kind of like the same idea as the energy that you're referring to when you say the energy that's working against you or something chasing you, thinking that there's some ending point. It's never an ending point because you're 100%. Always, if you make it to that point, then there's a new ending point.
I think the CIA documents, which is the gateway portal ideas, which align with the telepathy tapes and all these other mystical awarenesses, they're all pointing to, let me try to summarize it from a non-educated in that sphere type of cat. Basically, what I grok is it has to do with consciousness does not operate the way we think. The CIA document talks about the cosmic egg that we're in. It talks about a torus. It has all these diagrams with, trippy helixes and all sorts of crazy stuff. It talks about black holes and white holes. I'd never heard of a white hole. That's what spits things out.
Talking about how to get the two brain hemispheres to work together and
and the binary beats idea of like hearing two different frequencies at once, creating the next, and telepathy and brain waves. It talks a lot about brain waves. And the telepathy tapes points to all these kind of things from a different perspective of autistic children who are nonverbal.
Right.
The Monroe Institute, that guy, the Monroe dude who did studies on himself by listening to recordings while he's asleep to see if you can learn while you're sleeping. And then he had an out-of-body experience and actually coined the term out-of-body experience.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So all these things, and then it's funny seeing it through CIA documents or hearing it through these scientific people on the podcast. That's what's funny to me, because mystics have been saying it. Egyptian culture has been saying it. Psychedelic people have been saying it. But when you hear it through them, because we're born in Western world that disrespects that kind of stuff a lot of the time, or writes it off as silly because it's afraid of it, there's a part of my brain that would never fully believe it. It's like, oh, it's a fairy tale. Actually, fairy tales are realer than we realize. That's the funny thing in my experience. But what it all points to is things like time is definitely an illusion. That's what the CIA guy said. That technically, if you could align your brain waves at a certain level, you would be able to view the past, present, and future with 100% accuracy right now, because it's all happening at the same time. Anyway, what it points to is like, life is a fucking wild ass trip. No one knows what's going on. We're magical beings. The only way to access certain levels, what the autistic children were saying, is through love frequency. That's interesting to me, because people ask, how come like government weapons organizations can't penetrate these remote places where they learn and talk and telepathically connect? And they said it's protected by divine beings, period. And it's the only way you access it is through pure love. And in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, they always say, like, I would never bring to God anything, any magic less than love. So love is really the only way to go. So you can't fuck around when it comes to the universe. I love that idea.
That is dope.
That love is all that's going to get you there. And I always think about, I said this on a recent show, but a story about a man walking, an enlightened one. He's walking down the road and he comes across a man who's praying, and he's skinny and he's starving and he's lashing himself and he's trying to become enlightened. And he sees the holy man and he says, "Oh, Holy One, when will I become enlightened?" And the Holy One looks at him and says, "In 6 months' time, you will become enlightened." And he says, fuck, that's too, and he hates it. He can't imagine 6 more months of non-enlightenment. Holy man walks on. He comes to a tree where there's there's a man, I don't know, he seems simple. He's just kind of flowing with the butterflies. He's there, very, just chilling. And he sees the Holy One. He invites him to share his food that he has. They have a picnic. And at the end, he says to the Holy One, "I'm sorry to bother you, but do you think it would be okay if you would tell me if I will ever become enlightened like you?" And the Holy One looks at him and says, "You will become enlightened in 100 million lifetimes." And the guy has the biggest smile break out on his face. He is so happy that he will get to become enlightened someday.
Wow.
That he just is so happy. And in that moment, the sky cracks open and he becomes enlightened.
Wow.
In that moment.
Because it is that moment. That's crazy.
Because
that's crazy.
I just got shivers because I know the experience of being the guy who's starving himself and trying so hard to become enlightened.
Bro, that's deep.
I want to be the guy who's just, the fact that I'm even participating in this fucking mystery and that I'm here and that I get to, dude, I'm the luckiest cat in the universe.
Right.
So we're floating in the ocean now. It's a good place to be. The ocean for me also represents the unconscious realm, which is more conscious. I remember this quote, this woman, Lisa Marciano, from This Jungian Life podcast. She said on the show, she said, "We call it the unconscious because we're unconscious of it, but in fact, the unconscious is more conscious than consciousness." Wow. And it's constantly sending us signals through dreams and synchronicities, but we don't pay attention. I love that though. The unconscious is more conscious.
Absolutely.
So what do you think about this idea that also surfaced in the CIA document and the telepathy tapes, that we perceive everything through our own lens, right? Your brain chemistry, your
environment, the way you were born, the way you came up, all the shit you went through, all the wins you had, everything is different from everybody.
So your experience with God or divinity is going to look different to you, right? Obviously, it just, our own cosmology, everything you just said, even our soul patterning, even before we're born and have all those experiences, which also augment and affect, we also have just our own usness. So therefore, the mystery appears different to everyone, which is why I find it silly when someone's like, look, it's this. And they're like, no, it doesn't look like that. It looks like this. And then they're like, no, that can't be. It's this. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way to find a common truth to describe it because it's different for everyone.
Right.
And Alan Watts said, trying to help another person is the equivalent of a monkey taking a fish out of water to rescue it from drowning.
I remember you telling me that.
I always think about that. So to me, that implies that more humility, more awe, and more trust in what you experience without the need to compare it to others or have it validated by the external.
Right.
What do you think about that? Like not needing... I might have an awareness that is so fucking profound, but then some part of me feels like I need to tell my wife or to tell you and say, what do you guys think? And of course, it's not going to be as profound to you. And so you might say, yeah, it's kind of cool. And then I'm devastated because I'm like, no, it's not kind of cool. That's the fucking coolest shit in the world. But you didn't see it.
I mean, my thought behind that is exactly what you said in the beginning is like some things to keep to yourself. There's some things you don't say out loud. You just lead by example. You know what I mean? Because if you say it out loud, then you get the counter product. You know what I mean? You get the thing you were asking about earlier when we said, is there ever something working against you? Yes. Unless you play against that on purpose, from the front end.
It's interesting. I heard recently about Rumi, the great Sufi, arguably the greatest, most famous poet of all time from the 1200s. Apparently, he may have even invented Sufism, if you've heard of Sufis, the whirling dervishes. And a lot of his poems he didn't write down. He would whirl, literally, spin in circles until his body became dizzy and intoxicated, and then he would spout poetry, like freestyle, and people would write it down.
Oh shit, that's dope.
So like tapping into really that other realm where there's just like it's like a priest who channels and has, or that kind of vibe.
I mean, there's theories that they believe that's what, a lot of things are, including creativity. Like it's a more of a product of the mind as opposed to of the brain. You know what I mean? It's like it's a thing you can, that's why you leave an idea and you go back to a room and you can walk back into that idea.
100%. 100%. Right? No, it comes from somewhere else when it's good. You can feel the difference between a forced
or on an elementary level, 2 movies exactly the same came out by 2 incredible directors and nobody stole anybody's idea, but it's the same shit. You know what I mean? It's like there was an idea floating around. That's just an elementary example of the idea. No, but you know what I mean?
That's what it is, man. All right, I'm going to say something. Let's all... Death, I'm talking to you too. I know you're driving. I know you're listening. And maybe it's you talking through me. Keep your eyes on the waves. But Hermann Hesse is maybe my favorite author of all time. And I can't wait to hang out with him in eternity. Last night, I said a prayer. I was in need of some guidance. And I opened a book of his poems, and it said, a dialogue with the divine. I've had a lot of trouble in my life holding my experience, like I just said. I was in a mental hospital 12 years ago in Harlem. I've had unexplainable situations, and I don't know how to hold it sometimes. And I try to bring it to other people. And like we just spoke about, that can backfire. Anyway, I just wanted to let that hang in the balance as death. I think we're actually, I don't know if we're on an island, but I feel...
We're coming up on the shore.
I'm not sure.
Who is that? It's like a tribal people waiting, like Hawaiian folks with the whole garb on.
Kahuna, maybe.
And then they had a feast.
and then they had a feast. And
we got out and had a feast with the tribe. They were incredible.
They said the bad news is your brains are dessert. Actually, that's the good news, we said. And they said, aha, now you understand.
There you go. Hell yeah.
I am the lost treasure I've been looking for.
Damn, bro.
I've been talking about Rumi and all these old mystics, people part of the invisible brotherhood, which we need another word because it's not just men, obviously. The invisible, immortal crew.
Humankind, the invisible.
I mean, beyond humans, maybe even too. Just the invisible,
good point.
the invisibles. The invisibles, let's say that. The indivisible invisibles. So I hear this story from Michael Meade, one of the legends out there still living. Shout out to Michael Meade.
Shout out Michael Meade.
I never knew this, but apparently Rumi's dad was a mystic. That's how he got into it. So his dad was this ill mystic author. And when he died, he left his book to Rumi. I never knew any of this. Back then, there were no copies of books. It was just one book. You know, that's your book. This is the book.
Mm-hmm.
Rumi went around not preaching, but reading his dad's words. Mm-hmm. One day, he's at a gathering by a fountain of water, and he's reading his dad's mystical words. And Shams comes. Now, Shams ended up being Rumi's teacher or Rumi's lover. You don't know who it was, but he writes in a lot of his poetry about Shams being his like love, his guide. Mm-hmm. Apparently, Shams was a wild mystic who lived on the border of like, you know, desert, and he was out there. He was not in the community. He comes up to Rumi and takes his dad's only book and he drops it into the water. Ultimate disrespect, right? You would think. Everyone said, what are you doing? And basically he says, there comes a point when you need to live from what you know inside and embody your own words, not other people's words. He said, but if you want to go back to the other way, you can reach in and take the book out and it'll be undamaged. And he said, he put his hand in, he said, look, and it was dry. In the water, the book was dry.
Damn.
And apparently that's when Rumi had his awakening. So I just wanted to bring up that to us as two people with a lot of overdue library books. That's the alternate name of the episode, Overdue Library Books. Mm-hmm. I'm always buying books. Shout out to Thrift Books. I'm on thriftbooks.com all the time buying used books. I collect books. I fall asleep with books.
I got a book buying problem.
Yeah, for real. I know. Me too, man. And I at the same time hold that story in a duality way of like letting go of the books while still enjoying books because we love them, but to find our own voice. What's that journey for you as a writer, as a speaker, as a reader? You know, what is that line of absorbing a lot of beautiful stuff and then also trusting your own inner voice?
Man, I just enjoy the process. It's like therapy to me. So I've learned as I grew that it's necessary.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me feel better. So I do creative things.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be brave and just trust it and let it flow.
Right.
But I love that idea of just letting go of your father's book in order to hear what is yours and yours alone. Hess also said if it isn't down in any map, true places never are. So the true places are never on a map. Mm-hmm. I love that idea as well. So what you're looking for, there's no map for that. Only you can find your way to that. And speaking of maps, where are we now on the island?
Hey, metaphorically, sometimes to your point of places aren't on maps. Like I went to Hawaii one time and the place that was on the map that was supposed to be really dope, no discredit to it, but it didn't blow my mind. I was like, what am I doing? So we asked the lady leaving, like, where's the dangers at? Where's there cliffs? And like, we want to see you know what I mean? And she told us. And then there was advertisements against it. Like it's called Divorce Road because you're going to fight with people and then all this other stuff. Ended up being incredible. And that's what, it wasn't really easy to find. In another place, 7 sacred pools we went to, same thing. It wasn't easy to find, but it was incredible.
Think about the metaphor of that, of the parts of ourselves we're afraid of. Mm-hmm. Depression, grief, anger. Think about what they might be hiding from the tourists.
Yeah, for sure.
You
And
know
I
what
like
I
to
mean?
think of that stuff like solid waste. You know what I mean? Like you can just get it out. You got to figure out your version of flushing it. But if you figure out how to flush it, whatever that means, you know what I mean? As opposed to wearing it or,
Totally.
same
But
thing.
there's something it's protecting, I think. It's trying to protect something.
Right.
A vulnerability, perhaps, or a superpower that got overlooked or made fun of as a kid.
Right. Or called something that wasn't a superpower.
Often the case. I bare my soul in 3rd grade and someone says, that's stupid, bro. And everyone laughs. Now suddenly I'm going to put some armor on that next time because I'm like, oh, that didn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is interesting to me. So T.S. Eliot once wrote, I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope, for hope would be hope for the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you? So basically, people talk about manifesting. People talk, and I'm all about it. I get it. But if your ego thinks it wants something, what he's saying is, I told my soul, be still and wait without hope, for hope would be hope for the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that difference of not trying to necessarily fulfill what you think you want, because maybe that's not the good thing for you, and instead be still and let what's meant for you to come to you.
I mean, that's a balance as a human being, I feel like, because we have to deal with inspiration and motivation and things like that, so it's a balance.
Yeah,
I think it's a balance.
definitely. No, I agree. I'm in that like phase of letting things happen feels much healthier and more beautiful and more exciting instead of clinging to, my wishes that
Right.
change or my dopamine hits or my concerns of how people might perceive me or survival fears, like really trying to dance in the flames of, wow, I'm an eternal being.
Right.
For real though. Like I am eternal. So how are we going to act if we're eternal, man? If you could really let that sink into your system all the way, like if you're eternal, so what are you going to act differently now? For me, I'm not actually. I swear I wouldn't change anything.
No, I wouldn't change anything either. I'm just going to try to learn quicker before this thing ceases to exist.
Yeah.
And see what that means. Because there's
Lean
other
in
levels
more.
to unlock, to things to learn, things to do, to achieve.
100%. Well, as we slowly wind down, because we go far. I mean, we've come from a bodega, broken down whip, to cross the seas, to eating our own brains for dessert, to found like these off the map places that actually are much better than where all the tourists get guided to. Like we've had a good journey today. But before we go, a couple last ideas. To you, what is success?
Man, happiness. Success is happiness. And that's pretty much it. I believe success is happiness. If you're happy in all ways, I mean, that's success.
Yeah.
And
For me,
success
it's
can
similar.
mean different things to different people, obviously.
Of course.
There's different versions of happiness, but that's my idea of success, complete happiness, whatever that means.
Yeah, for me, complete happiness and joy is a complete acceptance of yourself, honestly. Because then if you're not accepting of every part of yourself, you're not going to be comfortable to some extent. No matter how rich or popping you are, there's going to be a part of you in you that's making it uncomfortable to be you because you haven't accepted yourself. So I think as I ask both of us that's my answer today, is radical acceptance of my entirety of all the parts of myself, from the silly, dumb, smart, whatever I think, just who I am. We've talked about this, I believe, but if you don't inhabit yourself, something else will. That idea of like, if you don't fully embody you, other spirits and entities will. And especially with AI and all this shit. I was just talking to that guy, Vitali. He said, the internet stole our physical world in a lot of ways. So people wouldn't go to the stores as much, et cetera. So if the internet crippled our physical world, he thinks that AI is crippling our minds. So if we don't, so more than ever for me, I want to be human. I want to be uncomfortable. I want to, like at the gym, tear my muscles spiritually in order to grow. I don't want to delegate everything to some app that's going to do it for me. And I'm not speaking against it either, though, because I understand it's like a flow and things are tools. But being who you are and not who the world wants you to be, that is really like what everything is about to me, which connects to the success and happiness, is like, who are you? And if you're trying to be somebody that's not who you are in order to fit into another idea of success, you're going to keep hitting the same loop of pain. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I feel like I'm at like 87% of my acceptance. I've come a long fucking way. I'm going to pat myself. If it was one of those Drink Champ shows or something, Kevin, you can put some like applause or some like cheering noises there, because I'm giving myself my flowers right now for having done a lot of dirty, quiet work to love myself. 87% we're at right now. Bro, where do you think you're at with your acceptance of yourself, like for real, fully embodied?
Man, like,
doesn't have to be a number either, because that's
pretty well, man. I just have a lot to knowing that you have a lot to learn, I feel like takes things up a notch. You know what I mean? And knowing that I have a lot to learn makes me feel pretty confident in the fact, because there was a time when I didn't feel that way and I was just coasting. But now I know I got a lot to learn and I'm working on it every day, trying to figure things out, learn new stuff, figure out how to bring good energy.
As a wise man named Edward Crowe once said, something like, I gotta learn, what was it? I know what I don't even know that I don't know to learn what I something. It was a tongue twister. He's wiser than me, but
nah, that was fun though. That was fun.
I like that one. Go back to the last episode for that one. Okay, let's see. So apparently in heaven, this again is an old idea that I've felt in myself, I've read in other things, and now the telepathy tapes said this verbatim, basically, that in heaven, aka the afterworld, which apparently is realer than this world, and you're realer than you are, which makes sense. Like, I think our souls are fractaled into different forms because we're existing simultaneously. So this is one part of our souls, which is why I've often felt like I'm half asleep, and it's really frustrating. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm missing a part of my full consciousness, it feels like.
Right.
But apparently when you go to eternity, in the form where you are fully you, so like fully embodied, pure love, you might be 10 feet tall. They say you're a lot taller in the other realm. I don't know. You get to do what you love forever. I love that idea. And my dad would always talk about how perhaps Jesus is somewhere in his carpentry shop in the universe, because that's what he loved to do. That was his love, was carpentry.
That's really cool.
So what would that look like for you? For me, it would be what I'm doing, really. I mean, I'd keep washing dishes, groceries, cooking, poetry, exercise, conversations in the hearse, making music,
man, I'd travel
shooting
the
hoops.
International world, you know what I mean? Travel to imaginary world or something.
Yeah, the international imaginary world.
Yeah, just do all the cool shit you could do internationally, all over the place in your mind.
You'd be traveling?
Oh yeah, I'd be traveling forever.
Would you be writing?
Oh yeah, writing and drawing and hiking.
Would you be managing wild spirits? Do you enjoy
somehow,
that?
some way? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Helping coordinate and orchestrate. You're really good at that, but that's like a passion of yours.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Like so you'd be like a captain.
Captain
you'd be a pirate
captain. Or something. Yeah. That'd be dope.
I'd be happy to be on that ship. I'll swab the decks if need be. I'll be the chef.
My dog.
Okay. Let's see. Last two, three things. Defining courage. So on the same idea, what is success? What is courage to you in this moment?
Courage is stepping into what you know is going to be uncomfortable, but you know has to happen to become a better version of yourself. Right?
That's it.
Or standing for something you believe in. But yeah, courage is stepping into something that isn't necessarily going to be easy, but you know that you have to handle to become evolved.
Perfect. My friend Astrid Schmidt said, no matter what happens, or this is her idea that I'm summarizing, no matter what happens, especially when things occur that you don't like, reminding yourself that the universe is conspiring to enlighten you. I think that is a game-changing way to look at the world.
That really is game-changing. That's pretty sick.
I mean, I tried it because then no matter what it is, it could be the smallest little annoyance to like a huge devastation. If you can almost in real time, as you're feeling anger, sadness, whatever, say, okay, dear universe, what are you showing me? How are you helping me? How is this disappointment helping me to become who I truly am and get what I truly desire?
Right.
That's everything, man.
Right.
I'm just shouting her out in that wisdom, and whoever
that's really dope
wants to put that in their tool belt, because that's what's in my tool belt right now. Yeah. So this is the last thought.
Oh wait, Oh, we're dead. Hold on.
We are dead.
Where's the hearse?
Nope. No hearse here. It's imaginary.
I'm floating above palm trees. Damn, when it's nighttime, I can see the campfire and the smoke.
I feel free.
When we get reincarnated, we have to figure out how to find the hearse.
I think the hearse is going to find us every time, man. Don't worry.
That's perfect. You just get reincarnated and the hearse picks you up from the hospital.
Exactly.
Let's go.
Literally. It's like the chips they put in the animals, or the smart chips on kids, whatever they do.
They put it on energy.
On my energy, yes. And then Death might need a break. One of us might have to be Death in one of these episodes. Death might need to go on vacation. How about that for the next one? Death said, I'm on vacation, man. This is a non-union job.
Because how does Death die? Then what happens? He's got to be reincarnated to Death or something.
It's big questions, man.
Yeah.
All right, last thought that I've been pondering is sometimes when we find ourselves in a groove of success, it can be tempting to want to stay there. And in doing so, we trap ourselves in old versions of ourselves. The willingness to change, to look foolish, to start again, to contradict ourselves, even if it means sacrificing friendships, admiration, and status. That's another way of dying, right? It's like I've seen so many great artists in my outside perspective, so who the fuck am I? It doesn't matter, but I've always thought the Beatles were amazing because every time they would change their sound. And I'm sure they lost a lot of listeners. Or Bob Dylan shifting to electric guitar pissed everyone off, but he was following his truth. And he wasn't trying to copy the recipe for what had made it hot. So obviously those are musical examples, but on a day-to-day, life for anybody, I think that's something I'm really learning to embrace in my acceptance of self, and is very important. Do you find that to be something that you keep in your awareness as, part of?
I think it's a case-by-case situation, right? I mean, depending on what the scenario is, my answer may change.
Of course. Yeah, so that's true.
I couldn't really answer that straight up because it just depends on the situation.
That's fair. That's a good point.
But I hear what you're saying, though.
Yeah. Food for thought. Afterlife food for thought. All right. Well, I want to thank Death for chauffeuring us today, as always.
As always.
I look forward to the next adventure. It does seem like you might be going on vacation next time, so we might have to get a new driver. I don't know. Or you might have to drive.
I'll drive the hearse. I don't mind. That's been getting on my nerves anyway.
There you go. That's true. Too quiet. Too loud in his quietness.
Yeah.
Say something.
Exactly. I always got to try to tell you where we're at. You don't say that.
Word up. Thanks for listening, y'all. You already know. Stay tuned.
For sure, bro.
Feel it in your mind, body, no doubt, and be ready to die for this. Lie with the crowd, with your eye, never know what's inside of your eye. Love your eye, let it show. Trying to melt into your heart. Fly with the dive, with the love, how low. I want all sides of this life show. So show me your heart. Yeah.
close up in purse. Wrote up this verse like ghost in a church. Winking through stained glass, wolf in the strip mall, drinking from the bird bath. I pause and laugh, jaws sore from crying. Reason reborn on rhythm, forming alliance. Reason I swarm the kingdom with these giants. No difference between you and I. We both crucified in the crucified.
In the minute we can push it to the limit now. In the minute we can lose it, gotta live it now. Gotta feel it in your mind, body, no doubt. And be ready to die for this. Loud with the crowd, with the eye, never know what's inside of your eye. Love your eye, let it show. Trying to melt into your heart. Fly with the dive, with the love, high low. I want all sides of the life show. So, show me your heart. She said they don't have no language for how I feel. She said they don't have no language for how I feel. She said they don't have no language for how I feel. She said they don't have no language for how I feel. Not yet, not yet, but we invented up some shit. Not yet, not yet, but we invented up some shit. And it goes like, oh, they try to tell me, oh, they try to sell me, but there's something in the moonlight. Oh, they try to kill me, oh, they try to thrill me, but there's something in the moonlight. Oh, they try to stop me, oh, they try to drop me, but there's something in the moonlight. Oh, they try to X me, oh, they try to hex me, but there's something in the moonlight.
Gibberish or biblical, you took it too literal. Words of the sign pointing toward the invisible. Blah, blah. Rowdy off the wah-wah. Poem like moans from Madonna. Got a Jesus complex, plus I threw stones with Motown ghosts in my bones. Got a Jesus complex, plus I threw stones with Motown ghosts in my bones. And you know I swang out, bang out, man, eclipse that shame. Be proud of your path, gift and pain. Slang hooligan, sang eulogy, call it medicine. Funeral for the yesterday, they gon' let us in. Invent a key if they keep the gate locked. Tripping on some different shit, I'm living over dirty dishes. Visions of a perfect kitchen, lick your lip, dessert delicious. Serve it to you raw, baby, raw like Roberta did it. I don't wanna hear no fly, cause we murdered this shit. Electric bow, coming like a motherfucking funk revival. November 23rd, that's the arrival, 2019.